So, as many of you may know by now, or should know by now, if you've been following this Ksoo murder trial, Ksoo has been found guilty. Yes. This man got snitched on worse than I have seen anyone snitch since we've been covering these trials. He had someone who was at the crime scene with him, according to the guilty verdict, right? Snitched. He got less time. We've got his father, his own father, snitching on him, saying this is what he did. And then he even denied that he's his family or that he was close with his son on the stand. Absolutely tragic. Let's go ahead and get into the coverage of this and see how everything went down. Wow. This man had nobody in this corner other than his attorneys. Oh, they big snitched. And shout out to Judge Tatiana. Let's skip ahead a little bit.
I'm advised the jury has reached a verdict. Any reason we can't bring the jury out now and receive the verdict? No. All right, let's please bring the jury out. Thank you.
Here we go.
All right, the court finds that there are no errors or omissions in the filling out of the verdict form. Madam Clerk, can you please publish the verdict?
In the Circuit of the 4th Judicial Circuit in and for Duval County, Florida, case number 16-2020, CF 3601B, Division CRE. State of Florida versus Hakeem Robinson, verdict as to count 1, we the jury found the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. So say we all, done, Jacksonville, Duval County, Florida, signed by the foreperson on July 31st, 2025.
Does counsel for either the state or defense desire the jury to be polled?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Madam Clerk, if you can please poll each juror.
Juror 1, is this your true and correct verdict? Juror 2, is this your true and correct verdict?
Obviously.
Juror 3, is this your true and correct verdict? Yes. Juror 4, is this your true and correct verdict? Yes. Juror 5, is this your true and correct verdict? Yes. Juror 6, is this your true and correct verdict? Yes. Juror 7, is this your true and correct verdict? Juror 8, is this your true and correct verdict? Yes. Juror 9, is this your true and correct verdict? Juror 10, is this your true and correct verdict? Juror 11, is this your true and correct verdict? Juror 12, is this your true and correct verdict? Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you for your time and your consideration of this case. I also wish to advise you of some very special privileges to be enjoyed by jurors. No juror can ever be required to talk about the discussions that occurred in that jury room except by court order. For many centuries, our society has relied upon juries for the consideration of difficult cases. And we have recognized for hundreds of years that a jury's deliberations, their discussions, and their votes should remain their private affair as long as they wish it. Therefore, the law gives you this unique privilege not to speak about the jury's work. Although you are now at liberty to speak with anyone about your deliberations, you are also at liberty to refuse to speak to anyone. A request to discuss either your verdict or your deliberations may come from those who are simply curious, or from those who might seek to find fault with you, or from the media, from the attorneys, or elsewhere. So it will be up to you to decide whether to preserve your privacy as a juror. And with the rendering of this verdict, ladies and gentlemen, your service in this courtroom over the past 2 weeks is now concluded. And all of my prior admonitions and prohibitions against looking at the news or reading the newspaper, listening to the radio, or going on social media, or talking to anyone, or looking up anything, all of those prohibitions are now lifted. You are free to do those things if you wish. Keep in mind, folks might want to speak to you, and you are free to speak to them. But again, you are also free to refuse to speak to them. I do want to thank you sincerely for answering your jury summons, coming to the courthouse 2 Mondays ago, and being part of the administration of justice. I say this every week when I have jury trials. Our system of justice, I believe, is the best system of justice in the world, and it wouldn't operate in the manner and method in which it does without citizens such as you who take the time, the consideration, and out your private lives to come down here to be part of our process. So I do sincerely and genuinely thank you. And
good job,
at this
jurors.
time, ladies and gentlemen, you are now excused and free to go.
So they said the jury can get up out of there.
All right, Mr. Robinson, based on the verdict of the jury finding you guilty of the offense charged in the indictment in case number 2020 CF 3601, the court does hereby remand you to the custody of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and your bond in this matter shall be revoked. Now, he is entitled to a pre-sentence investigation report. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I will be sure to order one. Again, that takes approximately 30 days to complete, so we'll need to come back for sentencing no earlier than 30 days. When would the parties wish to return? I have the week
Monday
of August 25 or September 2 for sentencing to be set. The same week as Mr. Whitaker? Okay. Are you all available to return the week of September 8th? Keep in mind, Monday would be a to-be-set date, and we would set the sentencing on a convenient day that week for all parties involved. Okay. And on the 8th, you all are free to appear via Zoom. That's just a scheduling date. That won't be the sentencing date. We'll pick a date on the 8th. All right. Then we'll pass Mr. Robinson's case to September 8th for sentencing to be set. All right. Thank you.
And that was it, man. They got Ksoo up out of there. He's gonna be in jail for a long time. They're gonna hear the sentencing coming up in a few weeks, so we'll be ready for that. Also, Ksoo did have something to say after this that he posted on Instagram, which was wild. He said, I had an all-white 12 jurors and 3 white state attorneys with a white judge in a courtroom with all white judges on the wall. Every black person that I could pick on my juror was struck by the state. It just shows the whole world how Jacksonville, Florida is corrupt, and my lawyers proved I was innocent. God got the last say so. What do y'all think about that? I know we didn't see every single piece of testimony in this, but it was going to be a tough one to beat for Ksoo. Do y'all think he's right there? All the white folks being in the court made a difference. You look at the court reporters looking at him like, man, you done messed up. Get out of here. Now we're going to hear a little bit of a legal analysis when it comes to the breakdown of this trial and what possibly Ksoo could be looking at when it comes to the time he's going to serve.
Members found guilty in the murder of Charles McCormick. In the last hour, a jury finding Hakeem Robinson, known as Ksoo, guilty for first-degree murder. Take a look at your screen right now because we're about to show you a picture showing how Ksoo reacted to the verdict. You can see him there sitting next to his attorney with his head in his hands. Another jury finding Leroy Whitaker, also known as TK Scotty, ATK Scotty, guilty of first-degree murder earlier this afternoon. The victim, Charles McCormick, was shot and killed at a Merrill Road shopping plaza back in 2020. Heather Crawford is joining us now with our legal analyst with a closer look at the trial. Heather.
All right, Anthony, thank you. And attorney Shannon Shutt, our legal analyst, who's not affiliated with this case, is here now to give us her perspective. And I want to start by saying that these two defendants tried together in the same trial, but they had two separate juries. Your reaction to both of them being found guilty by two separate juries?
Certainly, this is a wild case and big impacts for the legal community, for the local community. But certainly there was a lot for the juries to consider. And like you said, there were two different juries. They were listening to the evidence that was relevant to their particular defendants, and they determined that the state had a good case here.
A lot of people watching this high-profile case, the state's two key witnesses were two confessed killers. One of them was Ksoo's own father. How do you think that played in to these verdicts?
You know, the juries come here and they expect to hear a case from the state of Florida. And I doubt that they were expecting to hear from two confessed killers, from the father of the defendant himself. It brought a lot of drama to the courtroom, but it didn't change the facts of what they were testifying to. And certainly the jury had the right to consider whether or not they believed these confessed killers. And the jury ultimately determined that they found them credible.
Now, I heard Whitaker's father today say that an appeal is likely. Take us through what happens now with these guilty verdicts. What happens next?
So the next stage is, of course, sentencing, and Judge Salvatore will get those defendants sentenced in the next month or two. There may be some other procedural issues that the state and the defense will have to take care of, but ultimately they will be sentenced, and then they will have 2 years or 30 days to appeal the sentence and the conviction, and then 2 years to appeal other issues that might have been arising in this case. But, you know, we always expect an appeal. It doesn't mean that anything will come out of it.
Was there anything that stood out to you in this case that you thought, yes, this is grounds for appeal?
Not necessarily. I mean, there's always always a challenge when you have two juries. And certainly there could have been issues with evidence as to relevance or, tampering or, tainting the jury in some way because they heard something that was not meant for one of the juries. That's just a tricky situation, but I anticipate we'll likely see an ineffective assistance of counsel motion in the future.
And for Ksoo,
which means then they might be back at this one, and maybe he gets another jury. We'll have to see.
Jury, they started deliberating today, and it was only about 3.5 hours before they reached that verdict. Were you surprised that it happened so quickly?
Again, there were so many issues for the jury to consider, but the state clearly did a really good job getting the jury prepared for the many issues that they were going to face, including confessed killers, parents. I know that the jury asked about a family tree in this case, so there were a lot of things for them to consider. But when you go through a concise case, it is possible to get a verdict very quickly. And in this case, the jury did their work and they were able to go home.
And just real quick.
And I want to know what y'all think about him possibly getting another trial and the appeals process in this. There were some instances where we saw some misconduct. There was almost a mistrial at one point. But we've seen that in other cases where the judge has just said, we're moving along. Y'all can fight it on appeal if you want to. Let me know what you think about this in the comments in the chat. Ksoo, he's going to be in there for a minute. So is Mr. Whitaker, ATK Scotty. Tough stuff, man.